Good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many of you here this morning. I'm Antonia Pop. I'm Vice President of Publishing at University of Toronto Press, and it is my great pleasure to welcome our panel on the Subscribe to Open model, the successes and the challenges, as well as the questions that I'm sure you all have. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning for this presentation and discussion. And thank you also to those of you who joined us on Tuesday for the S2O pre-conference. It's wonderful to see actually quite a lot of faces that we didn't see on Tuesday, so hopefully we have some new discussion and new questions this morning. I will introduce the panel, and then you will hear presentations from each of our panelists, and we will allow time for Q&A at the end. And as you can see, there are two mics at the front of the room. So closest to my right, Andrea Lopez, Director for Sales, Initiatives, and Partnerships at Annual Reviews. Some of you already know Annual Reviews is the first publisher to work with the Subscribe to Open model, and they are absolutely one of the innovators in our space. Next to Andrea is Sandra Shaw, my colleague at University of Toronto Press. Sandra is our Director for Editorial and Production. To her right is Wendy Queen, Director at Project MUSE, who is the first aggregator to use the S2O model. And to Wendy's right, last but not least, is Katherine Brooks, a collections librarian at Columbia University Library. My apologies, Katherine. And one of my favorite moments of my interactions with Katherine actually comes from about 6 months ago when I heard her talk about open access and hope. So don't let her leave the stage before she tells you about her hope. And without any further ado, I will allow Andrea to tell you about some of the work that she's been working on.
Thank you, Antonia, and thank you everyone for coming this morning. Thank you. I'll just tell you a little bit about Annual Reviews. We are a nonprofit publisher. We're dedicated to synthesizing and integrating knowledge for the progress of science and the benefit of society. And what's really important about that mission is it's changed. We were founded by scientists for scientists. For many years, we did a very good job of that, of serving the scientific community through our subscriptions. We've been around for over 90 years, and we have a pretty wide subscriber base. But we changed that to include the benefit of society, which is the reason we were looking to go open access. Reviews typically didn't fall under mandates when we started looking for a model that would work for us. Now we're seeing a little bit more of that, but we really did this to benefit society, not because we had to. And what's unique about us is in our name, we're Reviews, and we publish only invited reviews. So it was very difficult to use the traditional models such as an APC, because if you invite someone to write an article and then you hand them a bill, that's not very nice. Also, there's usually not funding behind a review article, so there wouldn't be a funding method for it. So we started to look for new models, and we engaged with Rain Crow, who is the architect behind Subscribe to Open. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a very simple model. We ask our libraries to continue to subscribe, or if you have an interest in one of our journals that you take up a new subscription, there's this thought that you can't get new subscriptions under Subscribe to Open, and I can tell you that is not the case. So we ask people to please get their subscriptions in. For us, we have 51 different publication dates. As our name implies, each journal comes out just once a year. If we hit our target, which is to get all of our subscriptions in, taking in the normal amount of churn, that year publishes CC BY that volume. And then we open up 9 years of back volumes. If we don't, then we leave the paywall up, and the people who have subscribed have access. We do have a backup of green OA for those who have a mandate. It's a very simple model conceptually. It's revenue neutral. We wanted something that there were no additional costs. It uses your library budgets. It uses the same infrastructure you currently have. If you order through a consortia, you can continue to do that. If you order through a sales agent, there's no additional work required. You simply continue your subscription. It applies to readers and authors worldwide. It's a very equitable model. For us at Annual Reviews, we do have some exclusive benefits. We have reviews in advance, which come out about 6, sometimes a little more longer than that, months before the actual journal is published. We keep those behind a paywall. In one way, it's practical because we don't have all of our orders in 6 months before the journal publishes. Also, we did know from some procurement, you have to give somebody something that nobody else is getting. And also, you have guaranteed rights with a subscription, and it covers everything. There's no APCs. If you have a subscription, you have authors, there's no fee for them to publish. And your subscription has a greater impact. So we did a pilot for 3 years. We started with 5 journals, then we added 3 more, and we had a total of 8 for the last 2 years. And we're turning 100 in 2031. So our goal was to continue to add a few titles each year until we were completely open access. But when the pandemic started, we had to pull down our paywall for the first few months because we knew that although some institutions were ready to go fully remote, we knew that others were not equipped for that, and we wanted to make sure everybody had access. And we saw an incredible amount of usage, and we were able to see where that usage was coming from. And we didn't feel it would be right to make people wait 10 years to have access. It's also difficult when you have 51 editorial committees, and you have to tell some of them, oh, your journal's not going to be open for another 5 years. So last year here at Charleston, we talked about the fact that we were going to move forward with all 51 of our journals. And the slide has changed because now 50 of our 51 journals have opened under S2O. We have 1 remaining, and that is on track. So we have been successful with Subscribe to Open for 2023. We've also seen an incredible increase in our usage around the world. This is an example of one of our newer journals, the Annual Review of Statistics, and you can see it went open in February, and we just had a huge increase. This is Annual Review of Nutrition, which has been, I think, in its 43rd volume, so for 43 years. So we've also seen an incredible change in the usage. And where is this usage coming from? During our session on Tuesday, our pre-conference, there was an objection to the use of the word free riding, and I actually agree with that. We're not seeing at our company people who are saying we're going to wait and see if everybody else pays. We haven't had anybody tell us they are canceling because of Subscribe to Open. We've had some cancellations due to budget, which we would have normally had, and then we've picked up new subscriptions. But what we are seeing is this long tail of usage from non-subscribing institutions. And we work with LibLinks and PSI, so we have a dashboard where we can go and look by sector, by country, and we can see who is using the annual reviews outside of our subscriber base. And it's this really long tail. There are some academic institutions, but there are academic institutions who wouldn't normally be a subscriber. They don't have a research program, they don't have a budget to buy our type of journals. And we're seeing it come from places like police departments, welfare departments. And our hope is that the people at these type of institutions are using the journal or using an article, and it's helping them with a policy or a case, and that we are in fact benefiting society by opening up the journals, and that your subscriptions are allowing that to happen. And looking ahead, we will be repeating the offer again in 2024. It's early, but everything is looking good and on track to be successful again. We do have to keep a careful eye on usage at our subscribers. If you're a subscriber to Annual Reviews and you have been to all of our journals for many years, one of our concerns is that if your users no longer have to go through single sign-on or through the VPN, will you actually see your usage go down rather than up? And that's for any open access journal, and how our library is going to judge if they're looking at only cost per download and they see that go down, how can they justify keeping a journal? So I think that's a discussion we'd like to have with everybody. We also have to look at the standards. If you look at a counter report and there's only gold OA as the option, or KBART, it's F or P, how do people know that they're actually subscribing to this journal? So we'll want to work with the standard bodies on making sure that there's some indication of Subscribe to O. I know that DOAJ now is starting to put up a small symbol of Subscribe to Open. The other thing that we see is a real benefit, I don't have it on the slides, is, I think a lot of us, it was very transactional, our interactions with libraries. And now it's very much a partnership and collaborative, and I think it makes all of our jobs more enjoyable to have that kind of relationship with our customers and with our vendors. And also, I think Raym is in the room, he's working on a link program where he can link some of the Subscribe to Open offers. And also continue partnership through the Subscribe to Open community of practice. And if you're not familiar with that, they did have sponsor the cocktail party, so it's a group, and also we did the pre-conference. So it's a group of publishers, librarians, agents, both book and journal publishers, funders, and researchers. And we get together once a month to talk about the model. We address questions. We work together on booths. We work together on pre-conferences. We really are a group of people that really would like to see this model succeed. So if you have an interest in that, please do let me know. You can go to the Community of Practice website and fill out a form, or you can just email me directly. But we really encourage participation in that if you have an interest in the model. And through that group for 2024, we have 22 publishers with 168 journals, and someone told me that that number is actually higher, that have used Subscribe to Open this year to make 11,000 articles open access. And again, that started with 12 of us, and it's now close to 200, so we really encourage your participation. And that's all I have, and I look forward to your questions. And I'll turn it over to Sandra.
Thank you, Andrea. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I get started, I'd like to give you a little bit of background about the University of Toronto Press. We're a nonprofit, mission-driven university press that was founded in 1901. Our mission is to connect ideas for a better world. In our publishing division, we publish both books and journals. We publish over 55 journals, over 2,500 articles per year, and our content is read in 190 countries. We publish journals in a variety of disciplines, including humanities, social sciences, and medicine. In our books publishing unit, we publish about 200 books annually, including scholarly monographs, textbooks, and trade nonfiction. In our distribution division, we partner with over 200 publishers to distribute their materials, and we have warehouses in Toronto and New York State. And one thing that makes us a little bit different from other university presses is that we also have a retail division that oversees the 5 University of Toronto bookstores across 3 campuses, which gives us a direct connection to faculty and to students at the university. UTP has been working with open access for about 10 years. In our books unit, we work with multiple models. We have partnerships with Knowledge Unlatched and Tome. And thanks to the generous support from the University of Toronto libraries, we publish several of our titles as Diamond Open Access, including the titles that you see on the slide here. In our journals unit, we publish under multiple open access models as well. We publish Gold Open Access with APCs, Diamond Open Access with support from third parties, and we publish under the Subscribe to Open model, which is the newest model that we're publishing under. Our Subscribe to Open journey began in 2020, although we didn't realize that at the time. In 2020, we published a book called Solved by former Toronto Mayor David Miller. David Miller is an economist and a lawyer by trade, and he has a passion for combating the global climate crisis and promoting sustainable practices. In his book, Solved, David Miller addresses how cities around the world are working together to address the global climate crisis. David is also the managing director for the Center for City Climate and Policy at C40 Cities. C40 Cities is a global network of over 100 cities from around the world who work together to address the global climate crisis. And you can see from this map the broad reach of C40 cities across the globe, in both the global south and the global north. Cities are so important in the fight against climate change. Cities occupy 2% of the world's landmass, and yet they consume around 75% of the world's energy. They create over 70% of energy-related greenhouse gases, and cities generate over 80% of the world's GDP. In 2022, UTP launched a new journal called the Journal of City Climate Policy and Economy, and we launched this journal in partnership with C40 Cities and with David Miller, who serves as the editor for the journal. The journal aims to be a vehicle into research, policy, and economic change that is required to drive the climate agenda. It provides a platform for research that empowers practitioners and policymakers towards purposeful government-led action. And its research presents an unwavering focus on delivering equitable and just approaches to support cities globally. As we were deciding the model under which to launch the journal, we had a number of goals that we wanted to achieve. We wanted the journal to be free to read and free to publish. We wanted there to be broad global dissemination of the research. We wanted to keep costs relatively low for the research community. And of course, we wanted to achieve financial sustainability for the journal. We felt very strongly that this research needed to be accessible to city administrators and city governments because, as you heard just a few minutes ago, cities really can make an impact on the global climate crisis, and they really can see change at the city level. When we were deciding the model to use, we consulted with Rame Crow, and we also consulted with the library community to receive their feedback. Ultimately, we determined that Subscribe to Open would allow us to meet the goals that we wanted to achieve and would be the best model under which to launch the journal. We were the first publisher to launch a new journal under the Subscribe to Open model, which we knew would be challenging as the model was originally designed for established journals, but we wanted to take the risk because, like I said, we felt very strongly that we wanted the journal to promote equity and to have the content accessible to those who needed it the most. We launched the Journal of City Climate Policy and Economy in 2022, and the first issue that we published was open access intentionally because we wanted to give a sample of what kinds of research and what kinds of articles we were going to publish in the journal. In 2023 is the first subscription year for the journal. We set the threshold for 2023 on a costs recovery basis, and we set the pricing using 4 tiers, depending on the research intensity of the institution. Our initial deadline to achieve the threshold was March, but we did extend the deadline. Immediately, we had wonderful support, subscription support from individual libraries from across North America. Oops. Sorry, I'm not sure what I hit. Thank you. Thanks. We had wonderful support from libraries across North America and consortia, and in addition, we were very fortunate to receive support from libraries such as the University of Toronto Library, who contributed well above the value of the subscription. We've also received great support from the Subscribe to Open community of practice, and like Andrea said, it really does promote a sense of community. There's so much knowledge and so many resources within the community that's been a great support for us. And thanks to all of this support, we did reach the threshold this past summer for this volume, and we were able to flip the volume to open access. So looking forward, we are committed to this model for the Journal of City Climate Policy and Economy, and we're also looking for ways we can expand the usage of the Subscribe to Open model with our journals at UTP. We're also looking to partner with Wendy and her team at Project MUSE for their S2O program. And with that, I will turn it over to Wendy.
Okay, good morning, and thank you to Katherine for organizing this panel and for all of my amazing fellow panelists. As Antonio stated, I'm representing the viewpoint and update about adapting the S2O model for an aggregation. We're planning to launch our offering in 2025 and have made much progress since last presenting with this group in the spring. As part of MUSE's mission and strategy, we began seeking OA solutions for our books and journals programs in 2016. We learned through various experiments and programs that we wanted to adapt a solution that was both equitable and scalable that many publishers could adapt. We were awarded a Mellon's Officers Grant to do a deep feasibility analysis on how the S2O model could work for an aggregation and amplify equitable access to journal content. We worked with Rame Crow. I mean, this should be a drinking game at this point, that every time Rame's name is mentioned, as well as join the S2O community of practice to form our offering. And I can say I'm very grateful to both, because without both that community and Rame, I don't think we would be able to launch a program in 2025. And so today I'll give you an update and a snapshot on some of our challenges and successes thus far. I've broke the challenges into 3 categories, and there are many, many more, but I tried to simplify this. And the first being communications. So we offered the S2O opportunity to every title in our traditional journals collection model. So that meant we were reaching out to hundreds of publishers. And so when we first started designing the program, we wanted to design it as a one-size-fits-all strategy. But the reality of it is we have publishers that are university press publishers that have large journals collections, and we have small society publishers that may have only 1 or 2 titles. So this presents very unique business results. And you know, the results of having those conversations, and when I say every one of those conversations was unique, it was. Like our publisher relations team had hundreds of unique conversations doing this. And the result was you'd have some publishers that would say yes within a matter of minutes of getting into a conversation. You'd have others that just needed a little bit more time to do a little bit of analysis. And then, you know, we had a handful that flat out said no, and many that said, I'm not quite yet ready year 1, but I think I'm going to be able to get there by year 2. And I'm very grateful for the patience and the team to have all those lovely conversations. The momentum behind the community of practice has made our communications lift much easier. As Andrea was saying, there's so many librarians and publishers in that community that are so open and willing to share their experiences. It's been a lovely community to be a participant of. And in the early days, we also had a lot of conversations with librarians, and many of you are in the room today, and really consulted with the librarians to help us form our offering. So I can't stress enough about the communications piece to this, and I'm grateful to be in such a large community. In terms of systems, of course, there are many tasks that are involved in unwinding the way MUSE has done business for nearly 30 years in the journals business. And our biggest challenge is designing the systems to handle metadata for a conditional model. Since we won't know if the offer is successful until first quarter of 2025, we have to be prepared to distribute metadata either as open access or gated. And as many of you in this room are well aware, we have to be extremely careful, as once metadata is released into the wild, it's almost impossible to sort of wrangle it back. And lastly, but really the category that holds the most weight in my mind is the future planning. So as I said in the beginning, we're offering this to our traditional journals model, our big premium collection. We have many publishers and many titles that have approached us that don't have these traditional models right now with MUSE, but they want a solution and they want to partner with an aggregation to do so. So that's a lot of modeling. That's a lot of different business models that we're going to attempt to tackle for the sake of our publishers. And while I have no reason to believe that we won't be successful, we do have to plan for that possibility. And during the pre-conference on Tuesday, my boss, the director of Hopkins Press, Barbara Klein-Pope, did a session that I think we all very much valued, said that failure is an option, right? And that if we are not successful, we will gracefully fail and work as hard as possible on figuring out what our next steps are and how to adjust the model to be more successful the next round. And I will also say that we have a lot of momentum around S2O right now, and I think it's up to all of us to keep this momentum up, and we need to keep this momentum up because it's going to be, at least from the aggregator's point of view, there may be titles that's, you know, it will take them a few years to get to where they're ready to say yes. And so we have to keep amplifying the message of what this model can do and keep that momentum up. And I think the best strategy for keeping the momentum for all of us is to continue to tell the story of usage and collectively learn how to determine its impact. So while these next two slides are very simplistic, I think they tell a powerful story. This is a slide of gated usage in 2022. And this is a slide of gated and open access usage in 2022. So if I flip back, you can see it's hard to dismiss sort of the power of that global reach. So in terms of our next steps, I'm happy to say as of this morning, we have around 23 publishers and 50 titles that have committed to the first year of the program, and that's still growing. We're having every day, there's new conversations, and I'm waiting for some ink to dry right now. I wanted that number to be a little bit higher this morning, but I'm very proud of that number and proud of what the MUSE team has done. And I would say the next heavy lift will really be the outreach to libraries. Now that we've formed, we're ready to show them exactly what's part of our offering. And we've done a lot in North America, but we're really extending that into the international space as well. And then so that by 2024 that we're ready to make a formal announcement to the world. And as you know, by 2025, we will determine whether we have been successful or not with the program and see what our next moves are. So with that, I'll say thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Katherine Brooks. I am a collection analysis librarian at Columbia University in New York City. I'm also a science librarian, so I select for the sciences and liaise with various departments. Within the libraries, I am part of a open access task force. Last Charleston, we spoke about our development of an open access offer assessment rubric. That's a very big mouthful, with a lot of help and advice from other librarians across the United States. And we are working on the task force, continuing to work really on defining what our open access priorities are at the university and within the libraries. We don't have an open access mandate or a broad open access policy that covers the entire university. And we might be slowly moving towards that. It feels like we've made a lot of progress in the last year, which is very encouraging and exciting. When I reflected back on what we've accomplished, I feel very pleased. We have brought some open access discussions to the Provost's Advisory Committee on the Libraries meetings. And that has led to them asking the libraries to lead discipline-specific webinars titled Understanding Open Access Publishing. We've held 2 of these webinars so far on the sciences, and we'll have 2 more this academic year, one for the humanities and one for social sciences. And just last month, during International Open Access Week, I developed a new workshop, How to Publish Open Access Without Paying APCs, which featured a lot of information on Subscribe to Open, as well as our read and publish deals at Columbia. We've heard some rumors as well that there will be some kind of discussion at the University Senate about open access policy this year, which is very cool. And I'm not sure when that would happen, but that's a really great step forward. Despite all of this progress, we have also encountered challenges and misperceptions. So, number one, we had fairly low attendance at our 2 open access webinars and our open access workshop. So while that was disappointing, we did learn a lot from the people we interacted with during those sessions. And we learned a lot about their misperceptions about open access. First of all, there's a number of faculty who believe that read and publish agreements don't cost any more for the libraries and that open access is free. And that when a journal transitions to open access, that now the library saves money because they don't need to subscribe anymore and/or everyone should be able to publish open access for free in that journal without APCs. As we all know, that is certainly not the case. There's very, very little knowledge about Subscribe to Open. Only one faculty member that I've spoken to has known anything about it. And so we certainly have some work to do on that front. You know, I was disappointed to learn, at least with the few faculty I interacted with during these webinars, as well as in individual conversations that were had with me or other members of the task force, that there's still a very strong preference for publishing in high-impact journals with little regard to whether the journal is open access or whether their article will be made open access. Faculty, as we all know, don't really want to pay APCs. They don't have money for it, and at Columbia, we don't have an APC fund to help them out. Why is this not moving? Okay, great. So we march on in the libraries and are continuing our advocacy for open access. As I'm sure all the institutions in the room do, we support open access through a number of ways. We have many memberships that support open access infrastructure, such as 2OA Pen or DOAJ or the OA Switchboard. We've had these for many years. This is not new. What is new is that in the last few years, really just in the last 2 years, we finally started to sign some open access publishing agreements. Part of this is that the open access offers just continue to roll in at a very fast pace, and it's accelerating, to be sure. We have worked on our open access policy within the task force, so we have a better idea of what it is that we want to do. And so we support open access through agreements, whether it's a book agreement with direct or purchase to open, a read and publish agreement, or a subscribe to open agreement. You can see pretty easily on this figure that we have more subscribe to open agreements than we do read and publish agreements. And there's multiple reasons for this. One is that we prefer the model over others because it is far more equitable. Not only does it support Columbia University authors in publishing open access for free, but it supports authors all over the world. And that really aligns with not only the university library's vision and values, but also the university as a whole. It also tends to be cost neutral, which is really an important piece. We do not have a dedicated open access fund, as I believe I mentioned earlier, same with many libraries. And even if we did, we wouldn't have enough to support all of the read and publish offers that are coming our way. Of our read and publish offers, all but one have been essentially cost neutral, which is why we were able to sign them. We simply don't have the funds to sign expensive read and publish agreements, and we very, very much appreciate the publishers that are offering read and publish agreements to us that are essentially cost neutral, because they enable the world to move towards open access and us to actually adopt those agreements. So thank you very much. As Antonia said, I am going to end on a note of hope. I'm very, very excited about how quickly Subscribe to Open is growing, and it's just amazing to see all of the announcements happening, even as we speak about new Subscribe to Open pilots that are happening, or even entire portfolios that are going to flip to Subscribe to Open. I absolutely love being part of the Subscribe to Open community of practice, and I'll put another plug out there for it. It's just been a wonderful experience, interacting with and collaborating with and supporting each other, especially those relationships between librarians like myself and publishers and vendors, who we sometimes see as kind of an adversarial, which I wish it weren't that way, but this community of practice has really kind of nipped that in the bud, and it's a wonderful community to be a part of. I'm very hopeful that together we can all work towards this wonderful future of open access for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katherine, Wendy, Sandra, and Andrea. I'll allow for a couple of seconds to see if anybody would like to come forward to the mic to ask a question. And maybe I'll just get the ball rolling. A couple of you talked about momentum. We are at a moment in time when we have momentum. Can you talk a little bit about what you all feel you might need right now to keep that momentum going and, in fact, maybe even accelerate it?
So I know I said that this during my presentation, but I think we still need a lot more conversation about understanding the impact of what we're doing and to continuously share the usage data and have more in-depth conversations, like opportunities to learn from each other, what we're each seeing. And I know it sounds like we're doing an infomercial for the community of practice, but that is the beauty, that people are very open with that, and I have hope that those conversations will lead to some more operational tools, like better standards for understanding the usage and the impact, things like that. So
Thank you. And I think we have a question, 2 questions. Excellent.
Yes, it's a two-part question, if that's okay. In terms of faculty, which Katherine brought up, and given the increased usage with S2O journals, do you think there's any possibility that faculty will eventually come around to wanting to then subscribe to open, because it will give their work a broader audience and greater reach? So that is a first question. Is there outreach to faculty that could be done to get more support? The second part of the question is, to the panel generally, any thoughts about the Nelson memo and the impact that might have on S2O?
Thank you.
Hi, I can start. I do think there's a big role for outreach to faculty. And we're certainly working on that at Columbia. We're redesigning our scholarly communication web pages, which are outdated. We've finally added a page that lists all of our read and publish agreements with links to more information. What we have yet to do, actually, is add a subscribe to open page to not only list the agreements that we're part of, but to bring up the fact that there are all these other subscribe to open journals out there. And right now, what I can think of is linking to this list that one of our Subscribe to Open community of practice members curates. It's just a Google Doc, but still, it would be helpful to put up there so that people are aware of that. That said, I mean, we all have limited time and in the libraries, and it feels like maybe the best route forward when in Columbia, especially since we don't have a broad open access policy, is just really working to advocate for open access and get those conversations going at the provost's office, with the Office of Research, at the University Senate and whatnot.
I was just going to add, if I can, I've had the privilege to represent the community of practice at a number of conferences, including Charleston, at the vendor booths, and I've had the opportunity to speak to a number of librarians, and the support from the librarians is there. They understand the benefits. They're really supportive of open access in general, but from what I've heard, it's the administration they need to convince. So I think they're definitely bringing faculty on board will help to do that. And I think we do need to do some outreach or some support for the librarians in also explaining subscribe to open, explaining the benefits to the administration. And of course, for faculty, there are benefits to this model. Some of the publishers are offering open access publishing guarantees to subscribing institutions. So definitely a benefit to the faculty, no APCs, broad dissemination of their research. So yeah, definitely a benefit there.
I think we need to get some faculty in the Subscribe to Open community of practice to really become advocates. And that's something we are lacking. We have a couple researchers, but I think we can probably, so if you have any faculty you'd like to recommend, please do.
And the second part of the question was about the Nelson memo. Can you, or a couple of you, comment on that?
Well, we do invited reviews, as I said, and in the past, there were no requirements to make them open access, but in the Nelson memo, that's changing. So I'm glad that we were doing this ahead of the memo rather than after.
We're certainly talking a lot about what that's going to mean at Columbia. That said, I think that the majority, again, I'm just repeating myself, the majority of these conversations have been siloed. So within the libraries, or I'm assuming within the Office of Research, or at the Provost Advisory Committee for the library. So I think we need to do some, more cross-communication across the universities to figure out what we need to do about the Nelson memo. But also I think, as librarians, we can certainly promote the fact that green open access does fulfill the requirements of the Nelson memo and point people to our own academic commons, which is our open access repository.
Thank you.